Hey guys, welcome to Ardynt. I'm Dylan, and this is my second episode in my series of sideboarding, explaining how to sideboard in Modern and got cards that are good against certain matchups. So I received a lot of great comments and criticisms from you guys, constructive criticisms about how to improve my videos, and I'm really going to take it to heart and try to make content that's more entertaining and enriching and informational. So I'll start off today with explaining about how the Tron deck works, so you understand better why you side in certain cards, what their purpose is, and when's the best time to use them. So Tron works as a sort of combo control deck, where essentially what you're trying to do is assemble the three Urza's lands, Urza's Tower, Urza's Power Plant, and Urza's Mine, because once you've got all those three lands together, you can tap them to add a total of 7 mana to your mana pool. You find those three lands by either using expedition maps or Sylvan Scryings or using eggs like Chromatic Star and Chromatic Sphere. But once you've got those three lands out, you try to use the mana as efficiently as possible, playing down game-ending threats like Karn Liberated or Wormcoil Engine, or if the game goes long enough, Emrakul or Ulamog. So the two major ways to sideboard against Tron are using cards that either destroy their mana base before they can get the three Urza's lands online, or playing cards that make their game-ending threats either useless or less game-ending, giving you time to win the game before they do. Something to note before I start. Although this is a top 5 list, cards at number 1 are not always better than cards at number 5 in all scenarios. You need to decide which cards are best for your deck in particular based on your meta or your deck's game plan. So we'll start off with the honorable mentions. There's only one card on the honorable mentions list, and that's Spreading Seas. Spreading Seas is 2 mana, 1 generic and 1 blue, for an enchantment aura, enchant land. When Spreading Seas enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted land is an island. So this card is useful against Tron because it temporarily can slow them down. If you put it on one of the Urza's lands, that Urza land loses a subtype of Urza's Power Plant or Urza's Tower, Urza's Mine, and becomes island, not allowing the other lands to come online even if you have the other two. So this is useful because it can prevent them from getting up to 5 mana or so. Spreading Seas is also a good card because it's a cantrip, so it allows you to draw a card when it comes into play. This is great because you don't lose your tempo after playing it, and it's not a wasted slot in your deck. The only problem with Spreading Seas is that it doesn't actually prevent them from getting mana off the land. They can still tap the land for blue mana. So even though it slows them down a bit, it doesn't destroy the land or it doesn't really set them back that much. If they get another copy of the land that you enchanted with Spreading Seas, and they have the other two Urza's lands, then they've got all the lands they need to assemble Tron. Next on the list, and this card is number 5, is Molten Rain. Molten Rain is 3 mana for a sorcery, 2 red mana and 1 generic mana to destroy target land. If that land is non-basic, Molten Rain deals 2 damage to that land's controller. Now this is an example of a powerful land destruction spell. Not only it can destroy a basic land, if need be, but it's also good because it doubles as a burn spell, much like Smash to Smithereens. This card is good in burn decks, or any deck that's trying to win fast with damage to the opponent. The only problem with Molten Rain is that it's 3 mana, so if you're on the draw, they could have very well already assembled Tron and placed down a game-breaking threat like Karn or Wormcoil Engine, in which case destroying one of their lands isn't going to be as powerful as it would normally be. Number 4 on the list is Ancient Grudge, which is also on the affinity list. Ancient Grudge is 2 mana, 1 red, and 1 generic for an instant destroy target artifact, and has a flashback cost of 1 green. This again is a very versatile card. Its instant speed and the fact that it can be flashback any time for only 1 mana, cheap 1 green mana, is very useful in a variety of scenarios, such as destroying the Wormcoil Engine and then destroying the most powerful worm that comes out of it. Paying 6 mana for a 3/3 Death Touch worm is not that impressive. It's also good against destroying your opponent's eggs or their expedition maps in the beginning of the game if they're having a hard time assembling Tron. This can set them back considerably since they're relying on a turn 3 Tron or turn 4 Tron to really stay in the game very well. The only main issue with Ancient Grudge is that a lot of the time it just won't do enough. It's very hard to destroy their Chromatic Spheres or Chromatic Stars after turn 1 because in response they'll most likely just sacrifice them. It also doesn't do anything to deal with Karn Liberated, or Emrakul, or Ulamog, but it's still a solid card to consider. Number 3 on the list is Blood Moon, which is 3 mana, 2 generic, and 1 red mana for an enchantment. Non-basic lands are mountains. This is a very intense sideboard card. you can only really utilize it in a specific number of decks, such as Burn, or decks that run 2 colors, one of them being red, or maybe sometimes decks that run 3 colors with one of them being red, because it can hurt your opponent just as much as it hurts you. I've played games before where I've played Blood Moon and ended up not being able to play my game-winning threats because I didn't have the right mana because it had been turned into mountains. However, there are very few decks in Modern that Blood Moon is as detrimental against than Tron. Playing a Blood Moon turns all of their Tron lands into mountains, slowing them down incredibly. If you're on the play and you're able to play Blood Moon before they assemble Tron, or even if you're on the draw but they haven't assembled Tron yet and you get to play Blood Moon, it's going to set them back considerably, and they might not be able to win the game if you're still able to put out your threats while they're set back. All in all, if you're able to deal with the resolved Blood Moon on your side of the table, chances are you'll be able to win as long as the Tron player doesn't have a way to destroy it. Number 2 on the list is Pithing Needle. Pithing Needle is 1 generic mana for an artifact. When Pithing Needle comes into play, name a card. Activated abilities of cards with a chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. This card is deceptively powerful. When you first look at it, you might think, oh, it's only possibly able to shut down 1 card in their deck. How is it so powerful? But you have to understand that, first of all, it can be played in any sideboard you want because it doesn't require specific colors of mana and is only 1 mana to play. Now let's see what you get for this 1 mana investment. Tron decks generally evolve their game plan around the winning threat that they have in their hand, or that they believe that they're going to get. If you play Pithing Needle, naming that primary threat, such as naming Karn, or such as naming Oblivion Stone, which they might use to wipe the board, now that's a dead card in their hand, meaning that they can't use it for any of the purposes that they're previously going to use it for. This completely changes up their game plan, and they need to think of a new strategy to try to beat you, which might not be possible if you end up establishing a good board state as the turns go on. Pithing Needle's even better if you've been able to see their hand through a Gitaxian Probe or a Thoughtseize or an Inquisition of Kozilek, so you know exactly what it is that they're planning on playing once they've assembled their Tron lands. Number 1 on the list, this is a 2-time champion now, is Stony Silence. Stony Silence is 2 mana for an enchantment, 1 generic, and 1 white. Activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. This card is great because it not only deals with their Oblivion Stones, but it also prevents them from synthetically assembling Tron through their Chromatic Spheres, Chromatic Stars, or Expedition maps. If you're on the play and you resolve this when they only have 1 land out, and they haven't been able to search for any of the other lands, unless they have natural Tron in their hand, or unless they're about to draw natural Tron, then they're most likely out of luck in assembling their game-winning threats. The only problem with Stony Silence that you have to be careful of is that it doesn't shut down Karn. So you need to have a way to deal with the Karn if they, in fact, are able to assemble Urza's lands, even though they can't use their eggs or their expedition maps. Another thing to note about Stony Silence. Since they can't sacrifice their eggs for mana, then they most likely won't have access to green mana. Green mana is useful to them because they can use it to play Nature's Claim, which is one of the only ways that they have to remove opponents' artifacts and enchantments. If they can't play their Nature's Claim, then they have no way to remove your Stony Silence or remove Pithing Needle if you're playing Pithing Needle as well, or any other artifacts or enchantments that you're playing, unless they're able to naturally assemble Tron and play Karn. But if they're not able to do that, then they're at an extreme disadvantage, because not only are many of their threats shut down, but they can't do anything about it because they can't destroy the things that are shutting their threats down in the first place. They're just going to have to deal with the disadvantage without being able to reciprocate. So that's my list for the top 5 best sideboard cards used against Tron in Modern. Tell me in the comments if you think I missed something, I'll discuss it with you. I'd also really appreciate if you liked my video and subscribed. I'm trying to grow this channel, and your contribution would help a lot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.